Good evening and welcome to Kevin Talks Tech Live. It is February 8th, 2021, just a little bit after 10 o'clock, 10:08 p.m. Central Time right now, 11:08 in the East and 8:08 in the West. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight and welcome back to another happy hour edition, there I am, of Kevin Talks Tech Live. I missed all of you guys last week. I'm so sorry. I came back from a trip to Arizona. I live in Minnesota, where the temperature right now as I speak is -5 degrees outside. So it is very, very cold, and it's going to be very cold for the next week. I'm honestly questioning why I didn't choose to go to Phoenix this next weekend, but it was just nice to get away. And honestly, the way the flight was arranged, I just got back a little bit too late, wasn't able to get in the chair, and so I figured, you know what, we'll hold off until next week. If you've ever been to Phoenix before, had the chance to climb the wonderful Camelback Mountain, a very cool place to get a great view of Phoenix, almost kind of feel like you're on top of the world, well, at least as high as you can get in Phoenix anyway. Just nice to capture some of that fresh air and get out of town for a little while, because the weather around here in Minnesota, like I said, it's -5 degrees outside, so it's cold. But good to be back here again. Good to talk tech. I was looking through the comments over the last week, and there have actually been quite a few comments piling up on the Kevin Talks Tech channel over the past week. And so I wanted to take some time and address some of those comments and answer some of those questions out loud. And then, of course, if you happen to have any comments that you would like to make here in the chat tonight, any questions you might have, drop me a line. Would be more than happy to answer those for you here on our program tonight. Always something I love doing. And also, if you're watching this on demand as well after the fact, drop your comments in the video and I'll be more than happy to answer those in the weeks ahead. So with that, and my arrangement right now, I've kind of got a unique setup here. In fact, oh, you know what? I just lost my monitor. Weird. I'm going to have to hook that up here and go back to it in a second. But in the meantime, let's actually jump over and talk a little bit about those questions that you have. This is live television, folks. It's crazy. I actually cannot see the stream right now in front of me. So hold on just a minute. I have to jiggle the cable here. Even the tech guy has problems with computers sometimes. There we go. I knocked the power cord out. And without that, I can't switch over to my browser, which is up here. Here's a couple more pictures from Phoenix. But I want to jump over here to the channel comments and address some of these that you guys have brought up here over the past week or so since we last talked. Actually, it's been a couple weeks that some of these comments have been bubbling. So we'll talk about those here tonight. Of course, drop a note in the chat as well if you've got a question, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other content that we've got coming up here in the cards in the weeks ahead too. But let's jump to the first comment, and I always do my best with these. Sometimes they're a little bit incomplete and I'm not able to answer them to the best of my ability. Rakesh Kumar commenting it on my video about your TV's RCA HDMI component VGA ports, how to out a video from TV. So this was in relation to me talking about the different ports that you've got on the back of your TV. A little bit tough here just because I'm not knowing what type of video you are working with, Rakesh. Primarily, if you're going out, how to out a video from TV. So if you're looking to take the picture out of the TV and go to another device, one way that you can do that is, well, honestly, it kind of depends. So sometimes people might want to do that if they have like a DVD player in the back of their TV or some other kind of device that they want to bring out. But honestly, the TV is a little bit more of a receiving device. So things like DVD players, VCRs, cable boxes, that kind of thing. Generally, the TV receives those sources and then puts the picture on the screen. Generally, you wouldn't go out from the TV to another device because there wouldn't be anything that TV doesn't act as a source per se. There's nothing that comes from the TV. The only exceptions to this would be, again, if you've got a DVD player built into the TV and you want to run that into another monitor, you could do that. Or let's say that you have cable going into the TV, like cable or satellite or something like that, and you want to push that out from the TV to another source. You could do that as well. There are some outputs on the back of the TV. Some TVs come equipped with component outputs and such, composite outputs. That could be a way you could do it. Also, you've got the coaxial connection on the back, and that's that cable connection. So you could run the output, if you've got that on your TV, you could run the output to another source. But again, honestly, it's not really exactly what it's made for, but a good question nonetheless. How to charge a phone or tablet using a USB on a TV. The system is still not effective. The line charges very, very slowly. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. It's not the most effective way to charge your phone. Really, this is more so if you're in a pinch, if you're traveling, maybe you're staying at a hotel or something like that. You got your cord, but you don't have a power cable or a power adapter to run into the wall to give it power. If that's the case, then yeah, that's kind of your only best bet to be able to get that over to the TV. So that is something that you can just kind of keep as a solution to utilize if you need it. But I do recommend keeping that on hand. Hooking up a DVD player with my HDMI, RCA, or component cables. Priscilla Crump commenting in saying, why does my TV go on and off? But need probably a little bit more background on that, Priscilla. It could be a number of things. One, it could be the TV itself having hardware issues. The TV just might not be good anymore. That's potentially an issue. There could be a function within the TV. Sometimes they have like an auto power off type function to save energy. So if the TV's been on for a certain amount of time, it might just power off by itself. One thing you could do to kind of isolate the problem and also to know whether or not it's, and this is pretty unlikely, that it's like a DVD player or a Blu-ray player or some other source that's causing the TV to turn off, is you can plug in another source and see if the same thing happens. So try a DVD player, try a Blu-ray player, try, if you've got an HDMI connection on your TV, run a computer into the TV for a while. See if that's the issue. If your TV is still turning off, then it's a TV issue. More than likely, I think you're probably dealing here with a TV issue, and you'll just kind of have to isolate that down a little bit more. When is it happening? How many minutes are going by when that does occur? And just check those menu settings too. Look under power settings if there's a power saver setting in there, and ultimately see if your TV is turning off at certain times because perhaps it's sensing that it's inactive, and because of that reason, it's just turning off to save power. Larry Smith, Kevin, thanks for your knowledge. I'm reading through a ring light here. In fact, I'll turn up my power just a little bit on that ring light. There we go. Reading through a ring light here, so I gotta poke my head around. Kevin, thanks for your knowledge. How do I transfer info from a hard drive that I've removed from an old computer to my MacBook Pro? Yeah, so that is a good question. A couple things you could do here. So your hard drive that you're connected to doesn't have the connections to run right into a MacBook Pro. Primarily, the only really way to get into a MacBook Pro is to be able to use USB if you're talking about moving data back and forth. And there's a couple different types of USB. So honestly, what I would recommend doing, so you've pulled the hard drive from the computer. What you might consider doing is seeing if you can get a shell, like a desktop type shell, to put that hard drive back inside. You don't have to mount it inside really or anything. Sometimes you can find shells where you've got a motherboard in there, you've got the graphics card, like everything is in there except the hard drive. And if you have your old desktop computer that you took that hard drive out of, even all the better. What I would recommend doing then is hooking up that hard drive into the desktop computer that you had it in before, if it is indeed a desktop computer, and then using an external hard drive. So this would be something that you would plug into the computer via USB and then transferring all the data back over. Now, knowing that that might not be a possibility, that maybe you've gotten rid of your desktop shell perhaps, that is entirely possible. Let me pull up something here just really quick. And let me see here. Old hard drive to portable hard drive, just because I remember reading about this recently. Okay, so yeah, here's what I'm thinking right here. It's been a while since I've been in this. So you can buy these docking type stations like this, and this would, again, it's going to kind of depend too upon what kind of hard drive you're talking about. If it's one of these SATA type hard drives, or if you've got, well, this one actually looks like it supports SSD also. Okay, yeah, so this one you might get a little bit more flexibility with. But something like this would be another option you could do if you don't actually have the desktop shell, is to be able to utilize this device to put the hard drive in. It'll read the hard drive, and then you're able to connect this to your MacBook computer and then transfer the data over that way. I've never actually used one of these personally before. I've only heard of them. But the way it works is you should be able to, again, put the hard drive right inside, connect a USB cable to it, which should be supplied, and then it would recognize this as a drive on your computer that you're hooking it into. And you'll want to pay attention to make sure that it is compatible with the type of operating system you're using. So for instance, this one that we're looking at is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. So really nice compatibility there. The reviews on this one look to be pretty good too. About 12,778 ratings, about a 4.5 star rating, which is quite good. So tool around a little bit on Amazon. This is a nice option. But tool around on Amazon, you could also go to newegg.com. That's another website that is really good for buying computer type components. And make sure you find something that fits your specifications. You'll want to make sure you've got something that fits your hard drive that you are trying to pull data from. And also make sure that it's backwards compatible with the system that you are connecting it to, which again, in this case, it looks like this particular model does do Windows, Mac, and Linux. Very good question. Personally have not encountered that. I've mainly been able to get my data off the hard drives prior to pulling it out of the computer. But I know sometimes that's not the situation that everybody can ideally put themselves in. Live tracking video network. I connect my laptop to my TV. I just did it today by using HDMI. It's actually 2 times larger on the TV. You can see everything 2 times larger is quite amazing, especially large TVs. Well, that's great. Yeah. You know, if you use HDMI, that's the best way to do it because that is the highest quality picture depending upon the graphics card that you have in your computer. That's going to be a nice 1080p picture that you're putting up on that screen. So a high definition picture. Some computers also come with graphics cards that support 4K. And if you've got a 4K television that is also capable of displaying an image of that high quality, boy, that looks really, really nice on a TV. But you're right. It is a lot easier to see everything on a big screen if you can connect your computer to it. Here's a bunch of random comments. Don't know exactly what those mean, so we'll just blow by those. And let's see here. Let's go to the next question. I'm monitoring the chat here in real time, by the way, doing my best to answer any questions that do come about. Mick B said a couple weeks ago, thank you, quick question. How much could I get if I sell my tower minus the hard drive? So that was in relation to this video right here, Before Recycling a Computer, Do This, where I talked a little bit about taking a computer apart and all the components inside. Definitely recommend checking that one out if you haven't done already. So again, your question is how much you could get for selling the tower minus the hard drive. A little bit tough to put a dollar figure on that. Honestly, it's probably not going to be too much, but it really is going to depend what kind of components you have inside there. If you've got a high-end graphics card within that tower, that could be worth some money on its own. If you've got a nice processor in there, that could also be worth some money. There are other things in there like sound cards and RAM. RAM is another thing. If you've got a lot of RAM inside that computer, those RAM sticks could be worth some money as well. So really it kind of comes down to how old that desktop computer is and what kind of components are inside. And in a lot of cases, if you're taking the hard drive out, I'm just guessing from the fact that you're actually taking the hard drive out of the computer, that it's probably an older computer. Just my guess. Could be wrong, but it's probably an older computer. And if that's the case, and if you never did do any upgrades on the components, then it's probably not worth too much. So look at those components specifically. If it's something you've upgraded in the past, there may be something there, but otherwise you're probably not going to get too much. And I hate to say that, computers themselves aren't really investments. At least they're investments in the short term, in that you do get the value out of it. And honestly, kind of in the long term too, because you do get that value out of it. But when it comes time for the computer to, no longer operate anymore or operate like it once did, there really isn't anything that you can suffice from that. These days, everything is just so cheap. Stephanie commenting in, hi, does the Cisco modem need to be connected to a Cisco router, or can it also connect to a router of a different brand? Thanks. So this is a good question. I've actually not worked with Cisco products before, so I'm going to speak really generally with this one. You'll probably have to do a little bit of digging. I would talk with an IT person at your company if you do work with a company, and this is a company related question, just because they're really well versed in Cisco type of technology. Cisco's a little bit more enterprise type of hardware, but to that question about using modems and routers together, no, they don't have to be the same brand. So I use a Motorola router, and then I've got I use a Motorola modem, and then I use a Netgear router, and the two work very well with each other. In fact, they really honestly don't have a lot of collaboration together. The main thing that you really just need to make sure, and every modem should have this and every router should have this, is you just need to be able to have a way to go from the modem into the router. And the way you do that is with an Ethernet cord. You go Ethernet out on the modem, you go Ethernet in on the router. Boom, it allows both devices to talk to each other, and the brand doesn't matter. My guess would be to this question, without an enterprise background, is that you likely don't need two Cisco routers, or a Cisco router and a Cisco modem. But I think that's also going to depend too on what kind of software you're running. Are you on a Cisco network? Are you interfacing with the router in a certain way using Cisco type software? And if that's the case, for consistency and just for ease of use, you may want to go with a Cisco router and a Cisco modem. But again, Cisco's a little bit more enterprise type of equipment, and so I don't have a lot of background in that, unfortunately. I would double check with an IT professional if you are working on that for a company. Okay, this one I answered already, but it's been several weeks, so I'll answer one more right here real quick. This one came from Maria Stark. Are there new televisions that still have DVD slots? My TV is from 2008. I barely used it, but still have my DVD player. I enjoy my family DVDs and do not have the time to start a project transferring them to a flash drive. Yes, I am technically challenged. That's all right. We all have some technical challenges. Even Kevin Talks Tech has some technical challenges. Had that a little bit earlier, right before I started this show, which is why I was on late. So are there new televisions that have DVD slots? The answer to that is I haven't seen any. DVD is a standard definition for the most part. Some DVD players probably do 720p, which is a lower form of high definition, but for the most part, DVD is a standard definition technology. It's 480p. The picture quality is, when you see it on an HD TV, it looks awful. It was made, again, to be like squares like this, and the picture quality was equivalent to that of analog TVs. So more than likely, you're going to probably have a pretty hard time finding a TV that has a built-in DVD player on it that is an HD TV these days. That said, it is possible you might come across a TV that has a Blu-ray player built in. Blu-ray is the next phase that came after DVDs, and that is an HD quality technology. And it might even be 4K actually too. I don't actually know for sure if Blu-ray advanced into 4K or not. Blu-ray came before 4K, and I honestly haven't used Blu-ray in quite some time, so I don't know if they've advanced Blu-ray to 4K levels. But either way, the picture looks a lot better. So I think you'd be more likely to find a Blu-ray player that would be as part of a TV. The good news is actually that a lot of Blu-ray players do support DVDs. So in that regard, if you did find one with a Blu-ray player, more than likely it would support DVDs. But again, I still think you're going to be kind of hard pressed to find that. And actually, the reason I kind of mentioned this question here too is because you almost had two parts in here. You said you enjoy your family DVDs and do not have time to start a project transferring them onto a flash drive. It's good to have multiple backups of your family movies. And I do recommend keeping them on DVD. That's a great way to preserve quality. But at the same time, too, discs are prone to scratching. Discs are prone to be broken. We saw that with VHS tapes, or VHS tapes, faded over time and in some cases would break. Luckily, our family still has many VHS tapes that haven't gone down that road, but there are some that have degraded because they are, getting close to, they're over 30 years old now at this point, because I'm 32. So I would recommend investing in some way to transfer those DVDs to a digital file as well. I really think having digital file copies of family home videos is great, because then you're also kind of future-proofing yourself too, because we know that, if you put into a format like MP4 or even like a WMV format, even though WMV is not as common, you're kind of future-proofing yourself, because one, no matter what you do, that video quality is not going to degrade on a computer. It's always going to stay consistent. It's always going to stay the same no matter what. Yes, over time it might look worse on future displays as displays get better and more technical, but the quality of the video itself will never change. It'll always stay the same way that it went into the computer. So that's one reason to do it. The two is that you can really do offsite backups really easily, which is nice. So if you want to back it up to the cloud, or back it up to a phone, or back it up to somebody else's computer, you could do that. If you really don't have the time to do that, then what I would recommend is making copies of those DVDs. So that way, if you had a fire, or if you had some kind of incident occur where a disc got broken or a disc got scratched, then you've got backups. And I would definitely recommend keeping a backup of that disc outside of your house as well. The same place where you want to keep it somewhere where the main disc is not stored, just in case something happens. So like an offsite type backup. And DVDs are really not that, they don't take up a lot of space, to be honest. So while I do recommend making digital files as well, so you've got digital file copies of the discs, you could also do the DVDs, make multiple copies of the DVDs, and then store them at different places, just in case anything ever did happen. So something to bear in mind with that one. Wanted to bring that up because that is kind of a question in itself. And I know for those of us who have parents and family members that recorded all those home movies on VHS tape and even mini DV, which was a technology that came after VHS. Actually, it was high 8 and then it was mini DV. Those tapes are going to degrade, and DVDs, of course, are prone to breakage. So it's just good to create backups. So that way you always have copies of the media when you want to access them again. All right. Well, let's see here. The time is just flying tonight. I was just looking at my clock here really quick and realizing that 25 minutes has already gone by. Absolutely crazy. So just a couple things that I was going to mention that we've kind of got here in the works and such like that. Obviously, not sure if you've been there or not. In fact, I'll pull it up here real quick. KevinTalksTech.com is my website, and I'm in the process of revamping it right now. I've actually done quite a bit here in the last, it's been a few weeks or so. A lot different than it was before. I recommend checking out KevinTalksTech.com. This time on here is wrong. I was contemplating moving our show to 9 p.m. CT, which still very well might happen, just depending upon everybody's schedules and such. But this will be the home. You'll be able to go on here, find the articles that we put together. The videos will also be on here. Of course, you can still go to youtube.com/KevinTalksTech. There's still just some kind of behind the scenes dust that we're cleaning up here. But that is at least a look and a snapshot as to what's going on the website. A couple other things that we've got going on. We got a suggestion a while ago from one of our loyal viewers, Elle, about doing smart home lighting and talking a little bit more about that. We talked ever so briefly about it a few weeks ago, actually a little more than a few weeks ago. Something we still have on our radar here, and something that I am looking at getting to here in the near future. I'm in the process of actually moving too. It's going to be happening about the next month and a half or so. So as time goes on, you're actually going to start to see things kind of disappear behind me. And eventually I'll lose this desk that I'm on, and we may have to take a brief hiatus, or we might do what we did a couple weeks ago where I just do Kevin Talks Tech live on the phone. So that'll happen at some point as well. But I think the new setup in my new apartment will be really conducive to talking about that lighting situation. So we'll try to get that in here before the move, but if not, we'll do that after the move, just because that'll be a nice setup to do that one. And the new apartment's going to have some other smart home technology stuff already built into it, so it'll work really well for that too. With that, always want to know about your suggestions, hear what you're talking about. One other area, of course, that I'd like to dive into, we've talked a little bit about it as well, is this topic of cord cutting. And we've seen a lot more people going the cord cutting route. We'll talk just a little bit about some of those services that are out there that you can turn to if you are a cord cutter, and then also just some ways to take advantage of content that is available out there for free, because there are a lot of different content networks. And then one other segment that we're working on right now that I'm really interested in, and we hopefully should have something here in the very near future. There's just such a craze right now with cryptocurrency, and a lot of people are talking about it, and we're just trying to make sense of it. You know, it's a new world. We saw with Wall Street Bets just how quick things can change in the regular stock market, and you know, kind of the impact we're seeing right now with cryptocurrency. So I've got somebody who's I'm pretty close with, and he very, very much has been following and investing in cryptocurrency throughout, just kind of has a real solid handle on how this is all working with cryptocurrency and that particular world, something that honestly I'm not quite as familiar with. So we'll bring him on. We're just kind of looking at schedules right now to talk more about cryptocurrency and answer your questions. Well, with that, everybody, I want to thank you so much for joining me again for this episode of Kevin Talks Tech Live. Don't forget, go to youtube.com/Kevin Talks Tech for all of my latest videos. More than happy to answer your questions as well after the fact, because I know, of course, when we do these live shows, nobody ever thinks of their question in the moment, and then it's like, oh, afterwards, why didn't I ask Kevin when we are live? But with that, anyway, thanks everybody for joining me. Have a fantastic day. We will switch over and send you out with the open. Have a good night.